everyone, and welcome to our Lavender Cottage Fibre Arts podcast. Today's episode will be a knit and chat. So this, we think, is our third.
I think it's the
our third knit and chat. So we just have a little project that we're working on, and we'll chat about a particular topic. But before we get into the podcast, we'd just like to acknowledge that we are recording this podcast on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, as well as any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people who might be watching this podcast. If this is your first time tuning into Lavender Cottage Fibre Arts podcast, welcome. And my name is Pia, and this is
Anna,
and we're sisters from Melbourne in Australia.
And we are trying to intersperse like once a month-ish. We do like a normal podcast episode where we show like finished objects, whips, future plans, etc. And then once a month, but offset by 2 weeks, we've been trying to do like a knit and chat, or like just stitch and chat, I guess, because obviously Pia's not knitting today. She's working on some embroidery.
So we might as well just quickly show the projects that we're working on. So I think I might have been working on this last time we did a knit and chat as well. I'm doing like a embroidery. Oops, that way.
Oh yeah,
there we go. That's in focus. Embroidery version of the painting Starry Nights by Van Gogh, and this is just, I bought a pattern off Etsy that was just like a PDF tutorial, and it has like all the, like a legend, I guess you'd say, of like what number thread to use for all the different colours, because all the embroidery threads, they're like kind of coded by numbers. And just tells you, step 1, use number 564 or whatever. I don't know, that was just made up, but use that for doing the moon and a different one for doing the background or whatever. So
cool. And I'm just working on a pair of vanilla socks, so that's the yarn. And this one, I think I showed it in our last podcast episode as a whip that I just started it. The yarn is from Maximu, who's an Australian or Victorian based indie dyer from the Mornington Peninsula, and the colourway is called Planet Hunter. I think sorry, that little chime there was just my computer. It every so often it
reminds you
to remind me to stretch. And I forgot to turn it off, but that's okay. You'll just hear a little ding in the background, so I guess that can remind you to stretch as well. I'd only just started that. To be honest, I haven't really worked on it all that much since our last episode, because I had a few test knits and also a couple of birthdays that I was knitting gifts for. So I have predominantly been working on other things, which is fine. But for today's episode, we thought we would do a little bit of a yarn advent debrief chat, I guess. I think 1 or 2 people did comment on our last podcast episode that they would be interested in hearing a little bit of a debrief about the yarn advents that I had. Pia didn't participate in yarn advents, but I definitely did. We thought we would just have a little bit of a debrief about that.
I mean, before you told me that you're doing one, I didn't even know that they existed.
I think it really is mainly something like that indie dyers do. There may be some commercial yarn advents. I actually am not sure, but I've never... Not that I've seen. I haven't seen Spotlight, for example, which is like probably the main big box craft store in Australia. I don't think they, for example, do like a it's just Juliet having a bit of a wiggle in the background. I don't think they do like a yarn advent or like just a general like craft advent. Or anything like that.
She might join us. Juliet does like going on the couch.
Yeah, we'll see.
It looks like she's thinking about it, but no, I think she's
changed her mind. She's like, there's too many people, not enough room for me.
Oh no.
I guess we'll just have to be careful that she doesn't knock over the camera. That would be the only problem. You can come on here, Juliet. Just sit in the corner there. There she is. Maybe you can just get a glimpse of her. Do you want to get up there? What's wrong? Oh, you're sort of halfway. Do you need help, Julie?
Maybe we'll pause for a second and I'll just help her.
Hold, please. So we slightly rearranged ourselves because little Juliet
wanted to be included.
Wanted to join us, and she kind of sat on top of me, so I had to.
She doesn't really have much concept of personal space.
Or I think maybe she does have a concept of personal space, but she wants to be in your personal space.
Yeah. Like I think I told you the other night when I was like sitting on the couch, and she could have just like, the couch is quite big. It's one of those L-shaped ones. There was plenty of room, and there was only me sitting on it. But to get on the couch, she decided to directly like climb over me. So she like stepped up like into my lap.
Yeah.
And then like kind of was almost like sitting on top of me.
Mm-hmm. Oh well, it's cute. It's cute. She's very cuddly. But yeah, so we were going to do a little bit of a yarn advent debrief. So I did go a little bit overboard maybe with the yarn advents. I think maybe because it was the first year I'd done it, I just went a little bit
kind of
a bit insane. So I did get from 4 different dyers, and from one dyer I got 2 advents, and from another one I got her 25-day advent and her weekly sock advent. So in total, I had a lot of advents, and I think that's probably the first thing that I would say that I have learned from that experience. I think it was too many. Like, I think I did feel a little bit overwhelmed, and not that I sort of, I don't want to say that like I didn't like the yarns or didn't enjoy it, but a few times, especially if I just had a really busy day and got home at like 10 o'clock at night or whatever, like I just felt a bit overwhelmed by it, and a few times I didn't actually open the yarn on that day because I was just like, I'm just so tired. I'll just open to the following day.
Yeah.
So I think that would be the first thing for me, is that in the future...
it's probably the reverse of some people who, like, maybe just open the whole thing at the start.
Yeah, well, some people do. Like, I think a friend of mine from
I suppose it doesn't really
our
matter.
knitting
Like,
group
no
on
rules.
Instagram. Yeah, like, I mean, you've paid for it. It's yours. I think she said, I can't remember what happened, but something happened, like, in maybe late November, that I think she was feeling really down. I can't remember if it was like job related or like family related, but she said she just had a period where she was feeling really stressed out and really down, and she just needed kind of like a pick me up. So she opened her advent in November. But like, I mean, I don't really see a problem with that. I guess
and I suppose it depends.
It
It depends on like what your motivation for buying that. Like if you are buying it because you like the excitement of having something new to open every day or every week or whatever. But then I guess if there's other people who just buy it as like a good way to get a mix of different things.
Yes,
And they're not really doing it for the sort of like, you know,
countdown to Christmas
excitement
kind of factor,
being like a kid.
I guess the main thing is, I think, like obviously the dyers would ask that you don't share photos like prior to
That's fair.
Yeah. So I think that was one thing that I realised, that it was probably too many for me personally. It just got sometimes a little bit overwhelming. And I think all of the advents except for one that I got were like minis. So usually there'll be either people who do like 24 or 25 day or sometimes 12 day advents that are mini skeins, and then another common style is like a weekly advent that you open on like the 4 Sundays of December, and that will usually be a 100 gram skein of sock yarn.
Because that is like, I think in Europe and stuff, people who celebrate
like
Advent
light
is
the
like
wreath.
you light a candle on
on the
the 4 Sundays before Christmas, which I suppose depending on what day Christmas falls on, sometimes would start in November.
So I think like if I was to get yarn advents again, in some ways I feel like maybe for me and like for what I knit, that I knit a lot of socks, maybe the weekly sock advent is a better option for me, because like I don't really have to think about finding a project for 4 skeins of sock yarn. I can easily use 4 skeins of sock yarn, and like if I didn't want to use them all together, I could just make 4 pairs of socks, or I could find a t-shirt or a jumper or something like that I could fade the skeins together if I wanted to.
If they kind of go together.
Yeah. And also I feel like with the 100 gram skeins, if there was a skein that you didn't really like, I think it would be much easier to destash a 100 gram skein of yarn than it would be to destash like a single mini.
Oh, like just sell it to someone.
Yeah. Or like if you really didn't like the entire advent, I think it would be much easier to destash 4 skeins of sock yarn because you could sell them individually as well.
Yeah.
Rather than destashing an entire advent of 20 gram minis. I think that would be quite difficult to do if you really kind of didn't end up liking. But I guess like you kind of have to do your research a little bit with purchasing an advent. Like you want to be fairly confident that you kind of like that dyer's style.
Yeah, and I suppose just have to be willing to accept it. I suppose especially something if there's 24 different things, probably there will be at least 1 or 2 things that aren't super, your favourite.
Yeah, I guess it's the same with, I think we were talking about this a little bit before when we were having lunch, like whatever, if you get like, I don't know, a makeup advent or like a
Which I didn't even realise that these were a thing, but I suppose it's in a way it's just like any way to make for like shops to make people buy more stuff.
Yeah, to be honest.
Not only you have to buy Christmas presents, you have to buy pre-Christmas presents.
T2 does like a tea advent, and we both love tea, but I think I wouldn't personally get a tea advent because I'm quite particular about tea, the teas that I like. So I think although I really love tea, I'm pretty sure if I got a tea advent, there would be quite a lot of the teas that I personally wasn't a fan of because I don't like green tea. So anything that's a green tea, I don't
particularly like very sort of like fruity, like berry tea.
Oh, I don't mind those, but I also don't like really sort of like smoky, kind of like that sort of, I don't know, like I think isn't oolong tea is quite smoky, I think.
Yeah.
You're right there, Juliet.
She doesn't like smoky tea either.
Oh, okay. That's fair enough.
I love tea, but I basically only love one particular.
Yeah, like you always just drink Madura Earl Grey and that's it.
Exactly.
So I guess I can go through the different advents that I got. I might put up a picture of like what the full advent looked like by the end of the 25 days, and then just talk about each of the advents that I got. Just a bit.
Can I ask a question? This is not sort of shaming you for spending money or whatever, but just as someone who was unaware of the existence of these until recently, like roughly how much are they?
Probably like $250 to $300 Australian dollars, depending on the dyer.
And does that include shipping?
Yeah. And then I guess, if you're shipping from overseas, maybe you're going to pay a little bit more. That's a ballpark. Actually, maybe 250 is a bit high. I think maybe between 200 to 300. Depending on, and obviously the 4 skeins of sock yarn, that would be cheaper than the 24 day advents. I will just talk through.
And I suppose just for like practical purposes, they always ship the whole thing in one go. Like you're not going to get like 24 separate parcels.
No, of course
I guess then the shipping cost would just be
astronomical. Yeah, no, that would be silly.
And
I think most dyers usually ship them out in sort of like late October, early November.
Just like crashing into yours.
Sorry, I think I've scooted it a little bit further over because of Juliet. I think most dyers usually ship them out in sort of late October, early November.
To give enough time.
Yeah, make sure that everyone's going to receive them before December 1st. Yeah. So I'll just kind of run through the ones that I got and say, any... not so much pros and cons, but just like the different thoughts about them. And actually I should probably also say before I go into this, because I don't really want to make it seem like I'm criticizing any of these, all of these dyers that I purchased from, I really love their yarns. I have purchased their yarns in the past, except for I think Castleview Yarns. She was the only one that I bought an advent from that I hadn't ever purchased yarn from her before. All of them I was overall very happy and would buy yarn from these people again. Maybe wouldn't necessarily buy an advent. I guess it would just depend. I think like for this year, I think I want to limit myself to maybe just one advent and maybe try like a different a different dyer just to, I don't know, get a different experience. But yeah, I don't want it to seem like I'm, like bashing any of these businesses. But I guess just to say a few things that I learned about them, and I guess some of these things for some people would be a pro, other people would be a con. I guess it just depends on your situation and how you like to use your yarn, I think. So the first one I will talk about was from Superglow Fibre, and she's based, I think, in Arizona in the States. And this one, the theme was called Groovy and Bright. Ooh, you like the sound of that, don't you, Juliet?
She's groovy and bright.
Yeah, Juliet, you are very groovy and bright. And her dyeing style is all very sort of like really bright colours, lots of neons, that type of thing. It wasn't a fade though, and it wasn't advertised as a fade.
Is that where all the colours are meant to be sort of complementary?
Like have a consecutive sequence. Well, I think like ideally they would all be, it would be like a cohesive colour story, but not necessarily in like colour order. If it's a fade, then the colours should kind of fade into one another. The Superglow one, I actually really like that. I think in terms of like if I had to choose a favourite in terms of the colours and all of that, I think the Superglow one was probably my favourite. That was a 25-day advent, so you got a full 100 gram skein on Christmas Day. And the extras for that one I think was just some stitch markers and a sticker.
Is that like extras? Is that some of the days are like non-yarn things, or are they just like extra little gift?
I think with that one they were just in the box, so sometimes the extras will be wrapped up with one of your yarns for one of the days, so you don't know like I guess when you're going to get the extras. Others, I think one of them, the Castleview one, I think the extras like was on the 1st of December, like there was a little extra box that said open me on December the 1st. So it's not in addition, it's not instead of the yarn, it's in addition to. So the extras for Superglow was just some stitch markers and a sticker, if I recall correctly. I was trying to remember, and I just can't remember for all of these. I can't remember if she offered her advent on multiple bases or if it was only available on her sock yarn. That's one thing I can't remember. I would say I don't really have anything negative to say about this one. Like, I really liked all the colours. It wasn't a fade, but I feel that when you lay out all the colours together, it's very cohesive. So I think it will work well used all in one project. If you wanted to, I think I will probably use this one because I just feel like, because the colours are very sort of like loud and punchy, I just want to make like granny squares where you crochet a circle and then you can do like a border to make it a square. But I think I might do that border. I'll see if I can find a photo of the type of granny square that I'm talking about, and then just do the border in like a white colour. Because I just want to keep it simple. I think because the colours are so like vibrant and bright, it won't look good with like a really sort of like dainty, elegant. I think it just needs to be something kind of like bold but simple shapes.
Bless you.
Bless you,
Juliet.
I guess the only con about this one that I would say, and I guess this is maybe not a con for other people, depending on... You okay, Juliet?
Do you want to get a drink?
Depending on where they live, is that because it was shipped from the US, and this one I think she actually didn't ship it until like the middle of November. I actually didn't get it by December the 1st. I think I got it in the second week of December. So it would have been nice if it had been shipped a bit earlier, but I don't know if maybe most of her customers were based in the US kind of thing. That it was okay for them. And it was like, it probably was a bit outside of like her control, like that she was sort of shipping around the same time as the Black Friday sales, and and I could see on the tracking the parcel just went all over the place. Like it was getting like further away from Australia because it was going like towards the east coast of the United States, and then I think at one point it actually went back to a facility that I had already been through, so it seemed like it was just a bit of a shambles in terms of the postage. But I feel like that's really out of that's not really the dyer's fault. That's, I guess, just the postal service is maybe a bit overwhelmed. So yeah, that was the Super Glow Fibre. The next one we'll talk about.
Wait, can I just ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
How you said you're going to make those granny squares with circles from this.
Yeah.
What would the granny squares be for then? Like
a blanket.
Oh, okay, okay.
A granny square blanket.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was just like wondering what you were going to do with the squares.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't set like firm plans for any of them except for the castle view one. I'm pretty sure I know what I want to do with that. But I will. Yeah, I'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah.
So the next one was Little Woolly Makes, who there's a yarn shop in Hastings on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria, and her advents are a little bit different in that they're not. She does dye. For the 25th, you get a 100 gram skein that she dyes exclusively for the advent.
Yep.
Sorry, Juliet. But for the other 24 days, it's they're 20 gram minis, but they're from yarns that she stocks in her shop. So they're all indie dyed yarns. Like she's not going to give you like I don't know, some Peyton's like commercial yarn. It's all indie dyed yarns, but they're yarns that she stocks in her shop. So I think you get a lot of hedgehog fibres, a lot of spun right round, some Maximu. I did see a friend of mine got some from, I think it's called Twisted Ambitions, but I didn't. But so I guess in some ways, it would be a good way if you wanted to sample a bunch of different indie dyers. It might actually be a really good option. And I think she has 5 different kind of like mood boards that you can pick from. Like,
okay.
Yeah, and that have like a few images and a bit of a colour palette to choose from. And she offers it in fingering weight and DK weight. So yeah, that is kind of the details. I think the extras for that one was a few tea bags, like single sachets of tea, a needle gauge with a yarn cutter, and some of those plastic locking stitch markers. So they were the extras. And I actually got 2 different mood boards from her. I got the Merry and Bright one and then the Grungy Goodness one. And I can put up photos of those as well. So I would say definitely a pro of that is that you can try a bunch of different dyers. And actually, I guess because she's winding the minis off full skeins, another pro is that the yarn comes wound for you. So you don't have to wind it yourself into little cakes. You get the little cakes are all ready for you. So that is a pro. Something that could be a con, I guess, depending on, your yarn stash, is that, I guess because they're apart from the day 25, they're not Advent exclusive colours. There is a possibility that you will get some yarns that you already have. But I guess particularly if you have purchased quite a bit from either Little Woolly or from dyers that she stocks. Like if you have a lot of hedgehog fibres, potentially you're going to get things that you've already gotten before.
Yeah. But I suppose like the flip side of that is if you get something that you're like, this is super awesome and I want more of it, that you can. Whereas
that's
a lot of
it
sounds like a lot of these dyers, like some of their
the only way to get
Advent
this specific
like colorways or whatever are like exclusive to their Advent.
That's actually true. I hadn't thought of that to be honest, but it is actually a good point. And she does actually tell you, like each day has a little label that tells you like who the dyer is and what the colorway is called.
So if you did really like it, you would just be able to look it up and buy.
That's true. That if you got a skein and you're like, oh, I love this, I want more of this.
Like if you get a mini and you're like, I would actually like to make a whole pair of socks out of this.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. I hadn't thought of that. Whereas I guess
because I feel like maybe for some things like makeup advent calendars, for example, I think a lot of those are like travel sizes, and a lot of people say it's a good way, or like skincare and stuff, it's a good way to like try a bunch of different products.
And then if you're like, oh, this mascara was awesome or whatever,
and maybe some, I don't know if some of them maybe like they have like say like a lipstick or whatever that's like exclusive.
The colour is only available,
but a lot of the products in it will just be like travel sizes. Of their
I mean, I have seen some dyers release like a pre-order for their advent colours after the advent is over. Like sort of now. A couple
Yeah.
of dyers I think have been
So
doing
sort of once everyone's opened everything that you
pre-orders if you want a
small
100 gram
window.
skein of anything, but not all of them. So
Yeah.
I think for some of them, for some dyers, the advent calendar is the only way to get that specific colorway. So that is actually a very good point, that if you get something you really like, you can get more of it. Sorry about that. The camera cut off recording and we got a bit sort of edged out of the couch by Juliet.
Yeah, when I got up to check the camera, Juliet seized her opportunity to
So that's why we're
take up more room
in a different
That's why
spot.
we've relocated.
So I don't know exactly where we got cut off, but I think I was somewhere talking about the little woolly advent. So I think I had more or less shared my thoughts on that. I think the only other thing I wanted to say was, I can't remember if I had said it before the camera stopped or not, that not all of the advents are the same. So some of my friends who had the same like mood board as me, we did, like some of the yarns that we got were the same, but some of them were different as well. So, I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a pro or a con. I think just something to think about. I did get maybe a little bit of FOMO that one or two of the skeins that they got, I was like, oh, I hope I get that in like another day, like later on, and I didn't end up getting it, but like it's not that big of a deal, not the end of the world. So that was those, and I'll try and put up pictures of the ones that we got. The only thing I would say, it probably more with the Merry and Bright one than with the Grungy Goodness one. The Merry and Bright one I felt was a little bit heavy on pink and blue. Like I felt that it would have been nice if there were maybe a few more like different. I think I only got like one sort of yellowy one orangey one, but like I've got loads of minis in my stash anyway, so I can always supplement it if I want to kind of round out some of those other colours. But I think those will get used for blankets as well, but I'm not too sure exactly like what type of blanket I want to make. So I think that was the little woolly ones. Sorry, I just did make some notes about these ones. The next one, so the second last one, was from Castleview Yarns, and she's a UK-based dyer. So she had a few different options as well, and her theme was ice cream shop, but not shoppy, like
like an old-timey shop.
Yeah, old-timey ice cream shop. And I'm pretty sure... Hey?
I said, now I want ice cream.
We can go and get some later. I'm pretty sure I think her advents are always a fade, I'm pretty sure. Or the ones I've seen of hers were done as fades. And this was a 24-day advent, so 24 minis, but then there was an option to add on a 100-gram like coordinating tonal skein, and she also did have, like I said before, she also had a weekly sock advent that you could also add on a sock set to open on Christmas Day. And so in a way, I actually kind of like the idea of the tonal skein being an add-on, because then I think if you were making something like a Battenberg blanket or something like that you actually needed a lot of the tonal, like a 100 grams is not going to be enough, or if you want to make a blanket and do like a border or something like that, or if you want to make a jumper and do the sleeves in the tonal or something like that, if you know that you're going to need more of the tonal, you actually could have said, I want the 24-day advent and I want 5 skeins of the coordinating tonal, for example. So I actually kind of like that. And I can't remember exactly how many different bases she offered it on, but I know for sure it was available at least on a sock yarn, a sparkle sock yarn, so one with some stellina, and a DK base. I know she at least had those. And this one I thought you also got it in like a canvas tote kind of project bag, like a drawstring bag.
Oh, so that was like sort of an extra little gift kind of thing.
Yeah, in a way, I guess. And this one I actually thought was really good with her. The shipping, she shipped it in October, but actually before she shipped it, because most people are going to have purchased it like quite a bit in advance, like several months in advance. She actually sent out an email saying that they were going to be shipping out, you know, in 2 weeks or something like that. So if your postage details have changed in that time, to let her know. I thought that was really, I don't know, just like good, I don't know, customer service, I guess you would call it, that she...
I mean, it might be someone who's had problems with that before, had people, you know, claiming stuff never arrived or whatever.
Yeah, possibly. So yeah, this one, the yarns were really lovely, and it actually is like a circular gradient. So you don't, like, if you wanted to, I guess depending on like what you want to make, like maybe some designs look best with like the darker colors at the center and going out to lighter colors at the edges, or the other way round. Like you could actually split the 24 days at any point and it still forms like a full
that's
fade.
Cool.
Another thing that I liked about this one as well, with the card that came with it, had the names for each days, and each day was like a flavor of ice cream. So you can kind of, if you look at that, you can kind of get a feel maybe for where the colors are kind of going to go. Like I remember it started out with cherry, and which is obviously sort of like a red, pinky red kind of color,
like mint or
and then it went to like strawberries and stuff like that, and then it went through like different sort of caramel nuts and that kind of thing, then to pistachio. I'm like, okay, we're going green now. And then it went to sort of like blueberries. But then it went back to, I think the last day was like fruits of the forest or something. So that's the connection, I guess, back round to the cherry kind of colorway. So I just thought that was like a bit of fun, like for me. So it was very nice. Yarns as well. I can't really, if I had to pick a con about this one, which I'm sort of hesitant to call any of these things a con, but I guess it just depends on who you are and what you want. The other extra that came with this advent was a scented candle and a progress keeper, and for me, I just would prefer, if I had the option, to pay a little bit less money and not get those extras, because I don't really use dangly progress keepers. Like I gave them away at one of our knitting meetups, and I'm quite sensitive to different smells, so I smelled both of the candles that came with each, like with the sock one and the mini one, and they were nice smells for me to just have a quick sort of sniff of, but I just know that if I burned that as a candle in my house, it would give me a migraine. So I guess for me, I just felt like that's an extra that I am not going to use, but obviously for other people,
I mean, I suppose especially with like international shipping and stuff, like some things like candles are quite heavy, that it probably does increase the shipping cost
a little bit. But I guess on the flip side, something like a scented candle is also quite easy to re-gift to someone.
Yeah, so it's maybe like very sort of like knitting specific stuff. If you don't have other friends who also do knitting, might be a bit harder to give away. Whereas like scented candles, you could just easily re-gift that to anyone.
Yeah. So it's not that big of a deal, but my preference would be that if you could choose to not get extras, that would be kind of my preference.
Yeah, because I mean, I suppose anytime any of those sort of like free gift with purchase, like nothing's really free, like it's factored into the cost of the item.
Of course, and I'm sure like some people love getting the candle, and like the dangly progress keeper was quite nice. Like it was like an ice cream cone, but it was like made of glass, so it's like one of those blown glass kind of beads. So it was very nice, but I just personally don't use those dangly progress keepers. But I know other people are sort of crazy about them and collect them kind of thing, but for me, that kind of stuff for me is just clutter. So and I have enough clutter from like other sources of my life, so I don't need clutter from progress keepers. So that's kind of neither here nor there, but I just thought I'd mention it. And then the last one I got was from Rainbows and Sprinkles, who is an Australian-based dyer in Western Australia. And the theme of her one was Candyland. And that was, again, a 25-day, so 24 minis and a 100-gram skein to open on Christmas Day. And I'm pretty sure from memory that this was available as a sock yarn or a DK. Had both of those options. This one, I did like all the colours individually, but I felt as a whole it maybe isn't super cohesive is maybe like my slightly negative point about it. But I think if I in the right kind of project, I think they will look good together. But I think for me, for my preferences anyway, I think I'll have to pair it with I was thinking of maybe doing like the Sweet Shop blanket by Laura Penrose, and that's that basically you knit squares that half, so it's like a diagonal, two diagonal triangles that form a square, and half is a colour and then half is like a coordinating. So I was thinking to just use like an off-white as the coordinating, and I think that might just help kind of tie it together. Or the other thing that I was thinking to do with that one was to hold the yarn double with some just off-white mohair and then make like a really fluffy blanket. And I just think sort of softening out the colours a little bit with mohair will help kind of tie it all together. And I think for that I would just do like a crochet corner to corner. Oh, I forgot to say as well, the project that I have in mind for the Castle View, the minis, is I want to make the anthology throw from Helen Stewart, which I can put a picture of that project. But I feel like that colour palette lends itself to something that is a bit maybe more like dainty, elegant kind of style. But yeah, so for the Rainbows and Sprinkles, I feel that maybe just the colour palette, to me, the colours don't all go together super well. So I think I will need to tie them together with something else, like just an off-white.
But there's nothing to stop you from just using them in different projects.
Yeah, I mean, that's true as well. You could
just use it as like the contrast colour in like different socks or whatever.
Yeah, although typically my preference would be to use like a solid colour as the contrast. But I guess you could do it the other way around. Yeah, no. I mean, you could always do it the other way around. Like use a solid colour for the foot and the leg of the sock, and then use like a variegated. There's nothing to stop you from doing that. But I think using a variegated and a variegated
might look a bit funny.
Yeah, but I suppose also the other thing, like there is definitely within the 24 days, there are clusters of ones that I think go well together. So I could also make like a few pairs of scrappy socks kind of thing that I use like 4 minis to make a pair of socks kind of thing. I could definitely do something like that as well. So yeah, and I think that one, I think the extras was for the Rainbows and Sprinkles one was kind of like dispersed throughout the advent, and it was just like on some of the days you also got, which I mean this was kind of cool, like each day there was like an image of a particular type of like candy or lollies, and so for some of the days you actually got the actual like lollies as well. So if it was like a Skittles inspired yarn, you got like a little like fun sized packet of Skittles. That was kind of
I feel like one time I can't remember if it was actually from that Holby, the Danish shop, when I did an order from there, and they had like, it was like an extra gift or whatever. There was like a few like individually wrapped, like I don't know, they were kind of like lifesavers, but they were when they arrived they were covered in air.
Oh god, no! Well, none of these
have been not properly sealed. And then,
no, none of these.
I just remember opening
these
the parcel
were definitely.
And I was like, oh god, it's full of ants.
These were definitely not covered in ants.
Oh god.
They were like sealed lollies, so that was all good. But I guess maybe for that one, and I mean, she did say on the like information leaflet, like some of the extras are like edible. So, because you did also get, I can't remember exactly how many, but you got a few like progress keepers and stuff like that throughout. And I mean, I did maybe kind of like that the Rainbows and Sprinkles one, that it was kind of a surprise each day if there was an extra or not. Like it wasn't just like, here's your extras at the beginning, that it was kind of like dispersed throughout. So I think that would be like a pro of that one, that it was maybe just like a bit more
just another
fun.
Sort of like slightly fun. Like
element to it. But it did say on the card, like, some of them are edible, so if you have specific dietary requirements, like, just take care. So I guess, for a calendar that has, like, candy or lollies as extras, well, you know, some people there might be things that they can't eat or just don't want to eat for, like, dietary preferences. But, yeah, so I think that was basically... all of the overview of the advents that I did get this year. So yeah, I guess it would be nice to hear from anyone else, like if you had similar experiences or really different experiences. If you have ideas for patterns to use for advents, I know like a lot of like yarny podcasters do make like a video, usually in December, I think, of like patterns that they recommend for using with advents. So I have looked at some of those and have had a look at some people's like Ravelry favorites bundles. Some people start knitting like with the advent
like
straight away.
As they open it.
As soon as you open it, you start knitting with it. I think for me personally, I think I would want to see the whole advent before I pick a project.
Yeah, because you don't want to have to unravel halfway through.
Yeah, so that's just for my preferences. But I also do see the fun of like opening and knitting with it straight away.
I guess it depends if it's one of those ones that's just like a complete surprise, but if it's one of the ones that is meant to be like a fade or like a gradient,
I think
or
it
whatever,
would probably be easier.
You can kind of be assured that you can start knitting straight away, and you won't end up with the colour halfway through that you're like, oh crap, I actually would have put that at the start.
Yeah. And I guess like with knitting and crochet, nothing's permanent. You can always unravel it. But I think for me personally, I think if I was going to do some kind of advent that I was going to like knit as I went, I would do another type of yarn advent that you can get is some dyers that do self-striping socks. They just have one, like you get one skein for your whole advent. So that's obviously a more economical thingo as well. And you knit a pair of socks during December and it's like one stripe per day. But like just the colours is a surprise.
Okay. I was going to say, is it like chopped into like small pieces?
No. But like, I guess, I mean, you can probably kind of see what's coming the next day, like as you unwind the cake. But I guess if you had it in like a yarn cozy that you couldn't see which colour was next or something.
Yeah, well, that's true. For people who still want a surprise, but they don't want to commit to the full. Because, I suppose, I mean, fair enough, there's obviously a lot of work goes into them, but...
Oh yeah, like I don't think like they're
a bit expensive.
I think they're expensive, but like
not expensive for what they are, but just like expensive in the.
I think there's a difference between something being expensive and something being a rip-off. Like a rip-off is that the cost is not worth it. I think it is a lot of work to like develop that many colorways, and I think that there probably is like a lot of trial and error involved in making, especially if you're going to have a fade, that they've got to be really fading into each other, or if they're not a fade, you've got to make sure that there's nothing that's like too similar, that people are going to say, hey, this wasn't advertised as a fade, but like these colors are almost the same, like what gives. And obviously there's a lot of work involved in it. One thing that I was thinking of doing that I definitely could do is like maybe doing what I would call like a stash vent, like if I got you or mum or something like that, just to choose out like 24, and maybe I would give you like an inspiration like image or color palette or just like vibe, and get you to make me an advent. I think that could be kind of fun. Like, and then like I guess like commit to like using those yarns in a project and just like trusting your choices.
Get me to do it, not mum.
Actually, I think you'll probably do a better job than mum. Sorry, mum, if you watch our podcast.
She does.
I just thought that could be a cool thing. But I know as well, I have seen people on Instagram doing like an advent swap kind of thing. So like you put together like 24, like I think usually people do either 5 gram or 10 gram scraps. Like leftovers from various projects, and then you swap that with somebody else.
Oh, well, that's nice. That you still can do like a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, so I think there are ways to do, I guess, that it is expensive, so it's good also to think of ways that you can still participate in like yarn advent if you want to, without necessarily having to spend
a lot of money.
The same amount of money. So I guess they're two things that maybe we could think about doing this year in Advent, is either making like an Advent out of stash or doing like a scrappy Advent swap with someone.
Yeah. Did your knitting sort of group, did they have like a Kris Kringle?
They did, but it was optional. I didn't participate.
I mean, of course it would have to be optional.
Oh yeah, sorry.
What they do, like call the cops or something if you didn't bring it with.
No, it was optional and I didn't do it. But and I think it was just, I think they had you had to purchase like you had to include in your gift, and I think, you know, it could be something you purchased specifically, or it could be from Stash, at least one full skein of yarn.
Yeah.
And I think the price was $30 to spend.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think people...
and sorry, because I don't know if everywhere calls it Kris Kringle. I think
Secret
call it
Santa.
Secret Santa.
Yeah, Secret Santa. Or actually in Spanish they call it like Secret Friend.
Oh, that's
Amigo
cute.
secreto.
That's very cute. But essentially where you like draw...
Anonymous gifting.
Draw a name out of a hat and you have to get it. Or
and
like
I think
Ashley,
who organised it, she organised it like there was a form to fill out, so you could say like colour preferences, fibre preferences, and I think what weight of yarn you would prefer.
Yeah.
Because I guess that would be the tricky thing. I mean, colours, fair enough, but like, yeah, you wouldn't want to receive like a skein of, I don't know, fingering weight yarn and you don't knit socks kind of thing. Or like,
or I guess if you were like, you know, if you were a vegan and you don't...
Yeah, and you
like
want
using
sort of
plant-based
fibres.
Yeah. Or, I mean, for whatever other reasons that you... if you
or if you have like allergic to mohair, or, you know... Yeah. Plenty of reasons why people would have preferences for some particular fibres over others. Oh, it's looking good. Actually, you're almost finished.
You were basically...
Sorry, I was doing a lot of chatting, not a lot of knitting. I think I did maybe 3 rows on my sock, so maybe at our next knit and chat I might still be working on
I've just been filling in the swirl. I had like the base colour, but now I'm adding in like a few different colours of blues just to give it like a bit of a gradient kind of look.
Yeah, I blame Juliet. She distracted me from knitting a little bit, and I was like patting her throughout the video.
Juliet.
Yeah, your first podcast. So I think that's probably about it. So yeah, hopefully that was interesting. Like I said, we welcome...
I learned a lot because I didn't know that yarn advents even existed.
Well, I mean, surely you knew in December though, like when I was making...
Yeah, but like this is kind of the first time
new
I've
concept,
ever heard.
Yeah. So yeah, let us know what you think of the yarn advents I got if you want, or let me know what advents you had, or like I said, I am still kind of a bit up in the air for most of them about the specific patterns that I want to use, but I think I do want to have as a goal for this year that I want to knit like at least 2 of them during this year. Like I don't want to just have them sitting around.
I guess you can have like a 1 in 1 out rule for advents, like that you're not allowed to order another advent until you finish knitting the previous year's advent.
That's true. I am, like, the more I think about it, the more I think I'm excited to make like some kind of like either inspiration image or like concept or like mood board. Maybe I'll make like a mood board and then I'll just like get you to go into my yarn cave and close the door, and like you can just be in there for like half an hour or something.
Like you know, like on MasterChef where they have those like mystery challenges or whatever, and they run into the pantry with like a shopping basket and they have like 5 minutes to pick all their ingredients.
Oh, I would give you enough time though, because I don't want you to just
to like tear the whole thing apart.
I will just
mess.
be like, oh, you know, running out of time, just pick whatever, and then it doesn't go together. So, yes, maybe that will be interesting. Maybe we could make a video about that as well. But then I wouldn't be able to watch the video though
until after.
Yes, yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, I think that's probably enough knitting and chatting, or stitching and chatting for today.
Or patting and chatting.
Yeah, patting and chatting. That's Juliet's favourite activity.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess our next episode after this will probably be just our normal podcast episode, which will hopefully be in a couple of weeks. But yeah, thank you for joining us today, and until we see you again, we wish you happy stitching.
Bye.